Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey Scott, since we're waiting here,
Yeah.
do I see you biking along the Kim Williams Trail afternoons?
No, I'm a walker and a hiker.
Okay. I see somebody shoot by on a bike occasionally, and can't
Somebody
see too
that's got
much.
a mustache and hasn't had a haircut. That would be me.
Well, it's the gray mustache that kind of makes whoever this
Okay.
guy look like you.
Hey, gentlemen, do you know a person who would be joining by the initials GNL? Is that a legit person to join this meeting?
Gwen, probably.
Okay, great, thank you.
I see that there are plenty of parking spots over at the university now.
Yeah, isn't that lovely?
It has its upsides and its downsides, but I no longer have to hunt for a parking spot.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I live in the university area, several blocks away, but a few years ago it was, if you left the front of your, like if you were parked in front of your house and then you left to run an errand or something, you came back, you forget about it. You had to park on the other side of town. That's not a
Or at
problem anymore.
Or at Ace Hardware, where
Yeah.
a lot of people use.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our walks is we zigzag through the university neighborhood just because the trail that we have in our neighborhood, the Grant Creek Trail, is so crowded with bicyclists and tourists this summer that you couldn't do safe distancing.
What trail did you say it was?
The Grant Creek Trail. So
Oh, Grand
it
Creek. Oh,
starts-
yeah.
Hey, we are live on YouTube right now, and MCAT's gonna start shooting your screen. They're gonna shoot my screen because we're having a few technical difficulties here, but I think we're gonna be able to manage just fine. All right.
Yeah, I see the YouTube's up.
Want me to move that monitor anywhere? Should I move the monitor at all for you?
What do you see as the angle?
Yeah, do you want me to? Yeah, try to listen.
Hi, Gwen.
Good
morning. How are you?
Fine.
God, I got in at the end. Were you talking about the Grant Creek Trail?
Yes.
Are you one of those people?
I've used the Grant Creek Trail, but I'm not sure. I didn't hear what you were talking about. All I heard was the Grant Creek Trail.
Oh, the reason it's been really crowded this summer because of all the tourists, the people who are staying in the hotels and the motels, and then just, of course, because everybody's stuck at home and wants to get out and walk or go someplace, and the Grant Creek Trail is a good place to start.
Yeah. I was there a couple of weeks ago, but it was very, very not busy. I only saw 2 other people on the trail the whole time I was there.
You're lucky.
Yeah, it was very surprising, to be quite honest. Is Chris Rowe here?
I have not seen his name pop up, so you may end up being in charge this morning.
Uh-oh, that's a scary proposition, right?
Yeah, I don't see Chris in yet. He might join us though.
Okay.
Jeremy, you're muted.
Thank you. That was an accidental button push. I'm going to text Chris just to make sure that he's okay, and then I'll be right back. All right, I just sent Chris a couple of text messages to make sure that he's going to join us. Are we good from a technology standpoint? We're on YouTube, correct?
We're as good as we're gonna get this morning. Yes, so ready to go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Should we go ahead and start with roll call? Okay, I'll just, until Chris gets here, I will just go ahead and get started. Let's just go ahead and start with the roll call. Brian Kearns.
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Gwen Langford Spencer.
Here.
Excellent. Michael Dorshorst. I don't see Michael, but oddly enough, I did see an email from him this morning as well. Joshua Nichols.
I'm here.
Excellent. Chris Rowe is absent, as we know. Jeremy Flesch, I am here. Scott McNall.
Here.
Excellent. So just continuing along with the agenda, we have one position as we're aware. I think everyone is aware that Robin Saha has served on this committee for how many years? Brian, you might know, 9 years plus, maybe?
No, I don't think it's been that long. He became a member, I don't know, maybe about 2 terms ago.
Okay.
I mean, he's worked with the committee a long time. He had a student group that did the first climate action, well, I guess the second climate action plan, or
Okay.
greenhouse gas inventory rather, not a climate action plan.
Okay, so maybe 6 years.
Yeah, probably more.
So Scott, my understanding is that you are an alternate on our committee, and with one open position, I think it would be logical for you to slide into the non-alternate position. And when I say alternate, I'm doing air quotes. And
We can see.
okay, excellent. And then that will leave us with 2 open positions, one that we've had for a number of months, and then one position, Scott, that would be the open alternate position. Does that,
It looks like Chris and Michael are both at the waiting room. They're trying to join in the meeting. I just got emails.
oh, okay. Who,
You're pushing the wrong button again, Jeremy. You've muted yourself again.
okay. I don't have the,
I made it too. Hey, Jeremy.
hey, Chris, you're in. Excellent. Is Michael in?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Michael, there's
excellent.
Marty.
Excellent, excellent. Chris, we somehow I got in and we went ahead and did roll call, and then we briefly talked about the announcements as far as Scott McNall taking over Robin Saha's position.
Right,
And that's where we are right now.
right. So then on the renewal stuff, there were some folks that whose position expired, but I contacted Marty and unless they said otherwise, we'll just continue to operate with them as members. Michael had noticed that as well and said he wanted to stay on. I can't remember who the other ones are. I had it in an email, but unless somebody decides to change, it might be Brian. Is that you?
Yeah, I was one of them. And I'll stay on as well.
Thank you. All right.
That's good news.
And Gwen, are you also on?
Yeah, I may not be able to stay for the full term, but I can certainly stay if there's a transition. So I would let you know.
All righty. And I know Marty's working on getting her staff up so that we can get our renewals going. As it stands right now, we've got the 2 vacant alternate positions that are open, with Scott moving into Robin's position. So we'll get those posted before too long. So that's kind of that'll be a priority as we move forward. But otherwise, I think we're in pretty good shape.
I have a question. Do you need 2 alternates on this board? Is there that much absenteeism, especially if we continue in an environment where there will always be a virtual meeting of energy and climate team, even in the days when you come back together to meet corporally, because the public, the mayor and the city council want the public to be able to attend virtually. So our plan is to turn up all of our meeting rooms to enable a Zoom session. If that's the case, would 2 alternates be needed for this board to serve in the absence of a regular member? Because it'll be easier to attend, we feel, because you can attend virtually. Just a question, and you don't have to answer it today, but maybe think about it, all right?
Right. I think we probably need to work towards a better understanding of what an alternate is. My understanding is that the bylaws of the energy and climate team do not indicate that an alternate has any less responsibility or somehow is not a voting member or something like that. When I initially joined this committee, I don't remember if I was alternate 1 or alternate 2, but what I was told is that there's no, it's not as though I can't vote unless somebody is not present or something like that, that the bylaws don't indicate anything like that.
Okay.
Maybe somebody that's been on the committee for longer can clarify that.
Your founding documents, alternate 1 votes in the absence of the first absent or vacant member. Alternate 2 votes in the absence of the second vacant or absent member. So you don't have voting privileges as an alternate except in the absence of another regular voting member. And if you're alternate 2, that's less likely. Alternates are encouraged to attend all the meetings and participate fully in the committee except for as it relates to voting.
Okay. Marty, is that you talking?
Yes.
Okay. Can you send out or can you share those founding documents? Because I was not aware of those.
That's the bylaws that we revised recently. Did we revise them to include the youth members? So that's where that's discussed. So those should have gone out a couple of times in recent months as we worked through that, and the city council approved those bylaw changes. Was that in June, I think?
Okay, so that's in the bylaws, which is different than the founding documents. Is that correct?
The bylaws are kind of the founding document.
Okay.
Marty, unless I'm wrong, that's where I recall it being described.
Yeah, the original founding document, the thing that established your committee, was actually the Greenhouse Gas and Energy Conservation Plan. So that's been a long time ago. This committee was originally called the Greenhouse Gas and Energy Conservation Team. And so the positions on the team were initially set up there. And your bylaws should indicate some of the changes that have occurred since then, because there used to be a lot of representatives from different sectors. It's a different way to establish a board from our norm. Normally we would have a founding document that would be a resolution and ordinance, but this particular board started with a plan. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Though I think, Marty, there is also a resolution that helped that foundation. I think I saw that the other day.
Yes.
Or maybe it was both the plan and the team that were established in that resolution.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, something to consider. And that's interesting to note that we'll be virtual from now on, even if we all are sitting in the same room. That the mayor and the council, that's probably not a bad idea. I mean, I know obviously with MCAT, city council's been that way for years, so see how it works for the rest of us. All right. So no other comments or questions about the renewal of members or how it works with our alternates and how it was established. I guess we should look at that original climate plan. Right. Not hearing anything else. The next thing up on the agenda is public comments on items not listed on the agenda. For anybody who is watching via the city's YouTube channel, you can contact us directly via a call-in number. That call-in number is 877-853-5257. The ID number for the meeting is 960-049-3694. And the passcode is 528761. So we'll take a moment here to give anyone a chance to call in who has any comments. No Amber today, huh? Probably busy doing other things. Josh, is this your usual office? Is this your usual office, Josh?
As long as it stays above 60 degrees, yes.
Okay.
so it might be short-lived.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't, I don't think it quite hit freezing overnight. It got to about 33 at my house.
Yeah, I'm hoping that our tomato plants and cucumbers and things like that will survive with coverings from last night.
Yeah, I definitely covered mine. So they looked pretty good this morning. So I think they were good.
Good.
So, all right, moving on then, not hearing any public comments on items not listed in the agenda. Next up are the non-action items. And so it starts out with recruitment of new team members, which we just discussed briefly. So does anybody have any thoughts on whether we want or need alternates on our board? Because otherwise our board number is 7 plus our city council rep, which makes 8, I believe. With the alternates, it makes 9 plus the city council rep.
Adding to Jeremy's comments, he and I both started as alternates, and he became a committee member on the first meeting. I've eventually become a full committee member. So I would suggest that having alternates is a good idea, whether we meet virtually or in person. And sometimes a new alternate might bring ideas forward that the committee has not considered before. So I think alternates would be a good idea.
You know, one of the things that I noticed when I came on as an alternate was that there really is a lot to learn here. And it's kind of, I mean, it seems straightforward, you know, carbon reduction, implementation of the city's climate action plan. But in practice, there is from a technical knowledge and just how the city functions, there's a lot to it actually. So it is, you can kind of see it as a learning opportunity, I guess.
I don't know. I can't think of any reasons why not to have alternatives. I'd be interested if anyone has any negatives to having alternatives, but I can't think of any.
This is Marty. So the question isn't whether or not to have alternates. The question is, do you need 2 alternates? That second alternate doesn't get to vote much because there isn't a lot of, if there isn't a lot of absences. But if your board is prone to a lot of absences, that's where we usually introduce a second alternate on a board. Usually there's only 1 alternate on a board unless we have a big problem with absenteeism of the board members. So it's not a question of no alternates. The question is, do you need 2 alternates or would 1 suffice? And the reason why I would suggest getting rid of the second alternate is sometimes it's really hard to recruit board members. And so we can advertise your board, advertise. And so that creates quite a bit of work for our office for a position that doesn't ever get filled because there isn't sufficient interest. So do you need 2 alternates? Are your members absent that much? We don't want to impede the functioning of the energy and conservation team, but at the same time, we also want to consider whether we need that second alternate. Is that a position that we need to take time to recruit? Thanks.
Thanks for that clarification, Marty. That kind of makes a little more sense. There could be some middle ground there in terms of the second alternate. Any comment on that? Yeah.
This is Michael. I'm just wondering if maybe we want to kind of think about this and get back to each other over email and kind of, you know, draw this out a little more before we decide on something here today.
Sounds good. Yeah, unless there's any other comment, we'll move on to the next item, which is the strategic planning process. So this process began it wasn't really intended to begin. It just sort of happened because Jeremy and I were talking with Chase and with Amber, and they both had a lot of concerns about what we were doing and where we were going. I know I came in as president and started maybe shaking the tree a little bit, maybe a little too much for some folks. And so that conversation got going. And of course, within the team, there's always been that discussion, but we sort of punted and said, okay, well, let's just identify some priorities for this year and work on those and worry about the whole structure later. In particular, Amber was very, and I don't mean to put words in her mouth, she isn't here, but we have talked to her directly, and she's very concerned about where we're headed and what our role is. And so there's been a series of one-on-one conversations and small meetings. So far, it's been with Chase, Amber, and Jeremy and I, and then there was a few calls with team members. I talked to Robin before he left. Scott sent in some ideas. Some other folks have. Brian has. Michael has. So I think you guys get the idea of where we're going. I tried in this summary of strategic planning process to date document to sort of pull all the ideas together, because I had these other two documents that were basically summaries of the meetings that we've had. And so you guys had a chance to look at it, and in terms of process, the idea would be to next go to the team, our team, then go to some of the other key stakeholders, which would be folks on the Parks and Conservation Board, and some outside organizations like nonprofits like Climate Smart Missoula, probably the county person, Minetta,
Diana Minetta.
Diana, thank you, to talk to see what they're thinking, what their thoughts are, and then try to pull that together, come back to our team and see if, what we can agree to, what makes the most sense, as we try to be strategic, and it may involve, all kinds of things, changing the structure of the team, changing how often we meet, certainly looking at, what the needs are versus what the needs were when the team was established, which has been a number of years now.
Chris, could you tell us a little bit more about what the concerns that were expressed by Chase and Amber?
Sure. Chase, he's got a lot of pots going. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and he's dealing with a lot of people within the city, outside the city, the county, nonprofits, and so he's trying to do his job as he understands it. But what he doesn't understand, or at least he doesn't think he understands, is how his position and our team work together, as if there was never a matchup between the two. It was, we do this thing and he does that thing, and it's like, well, where do you guys step in? And it's a little hard for me, because I thought a lot of this stuff was clearer than he's indicating it was, but he's indicating that, when do we step in? What do we step in on? What's our role? Two things that came up is he's not staffed to our team, so he's happy to help, but he wants it to be very focused. He wants it to be very clear in black and white what those things that he's expected to do are, and what sort of time commitment. One of his concerns is we meet monthly, and he's doing things sort of constantly and having meetings back and forth with representatives from the various city departments, and how can an advisory or a volunteer board that meets once a month be useful in his rather rapid day-to-day actions and with all the different partners he's dealing with. And so, you know, he's the one who's expressed certainly the most concern about who we are and what we're doing. And so, and some of that's written into some of these points that I made, but I also send out some documents that have some minutes that deal with some of that stuff as well. Amber, yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Chris, can I add a couple of things? Two items that I would add. Number one, I think Chase, you know, very much wants to work with our team and is, you know, supportive of what we have done in the past. I think he's also motivated to make sure that folks serving on this committee don't feel unfulfilled, that what we are doing is important, and, you know, that if there's a feeling that what we're doing is not successful or not fulfilling, then, you know, committee members kind of tend to roll off. It's hard to keep folks on the team if you don't feel like you're making a difference and you're fulfilling your mission. The second item that I think Chase expressed has to do with needing to report to us, quote unquote, every time that something happens. And I think he expressed some concern that he already has lots of different groups that he, quote unquote, reports to. And if all of a sudden he needs to report to us on the status of every different initiative or every different plan that the city of Missoula has put into place, which is up to 5 now, as I understand it, that adds another level of bureaucracy. It adds another level of reporting without a big positive impact, or without a whole lot of decision-making capability. And, you know, one of the things that comes into my mind is, you know, do we decide on things? Do we vote on things? If there's initiatives that come forward from the city, do we potentially, you know, support that, not support that? How does that look from a specific standpoint? Chris, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
Yeah, the only other thing, a lot of the city boards and commissions and stuff follow a very specific regulation within the city charter somewhere. You know, the planning commission does this, you know, historic preservation does that. Ours does not have that. We obviously have, you know, the climate action plan and some of the other documents that the city has adopted, but we don't have a specific regulation or our focus that way. And so our stuff may just deal with when the city is specifically addressing some climate change issue, or does it involve every time the city, you know, is using energy, which is all the time. And so that's a concern of his and mine. I think that's something we've all identified. Does that make sense, Scott? And I'll get into Amber here in a second. Or do you have any comments?
No, that's really very good. I appreciate what both you and Jeremy have said. Helps clarify things.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea. Is we want to get as much information out on the table as we can before we make any choices. Talk to as many people. I'm trying not to have my own agenda, which I do, but I'm trying to set it aside and just try to gather this all in and make sure our team has as much knowledge, information as to what people are thinking as they can, as many ideas as we can come up with, that sort of thing. So in terms of Amber, our city council rep, she's not really sure what we do, and she wants to know, and she thinks we really need to play an important role advising her board and the city council on anything climate change related. And And that's really where she wants our focus. But right now, she's not sure what all is in our wheelhouse and how we address that. And I think that's a legitimate concern because we've all had that concern.
So Chris and other people who are online here, I'm thinking of one way we might address that, because if we try to discuss all of the ways in which we might work, that would take us a lot of time and we might not get anywhere. Chris, as you know, before Robin left the committee, he was committed to moving forward a green building policy for city buildings. So there's no green building policy. And if our committee thought that was a good idea, that's a policy, and that would be within our wheelhouse in terms of making a recommendation to the city council. Something that was policy oriented might help to clarify the role of our committee. I offer that simply as one example.
Yeah, and I was involved in those discussions with you and with Robin about policy, and in particular the green building policy, but associated ones, including a policy about green operations for the city, green fleet operations. But when Jeremy and I discussed that with Jason, with Amber, they were not terribly supportive of the idea that we as a team would develop policy. I guess the thought was that that would be the role of the city staff at the direction of the city council or the Parks and Conservation Board. And we might be involved in that somehow in the review of it, but we wouldn't actually do it. So I'm a little bit in disagreement on that. I think it's something we can do as a team, particularly if we're focused, we work with a subgroup. Jeremy, can you jump in on that? You were involved in some of those discussions as well on whether our team as a policy generating organization.
Right. One of the things that Chase Jones expressed is that we report, the way that he described it is that we report to city council by way of Parks and Recreation. And so it's honestly fairly confusing to me as far as, I know what we've done over the last 6 months, but it's confusing to me as far as, do we review things that Chase comes as far as new initiatives? Do we go straight to city council? I mean, I kind of feel like we do both, but honestly, I think it's important for us to get this ironed out. And I'm curious to hear from some of the members that have served on the committee much longer than I have, as far as, I guess, the specifics of what, where this committee steps in, where it provides guidance, where it provides approvals, things like that.
Well, we've done all that. In fact, where we've put things forward, we've done them in the form of a city resolution so that they could just be picked up and approved. Of course, there's been a lot of input from various stakeholders by the time it gets to that point. We've advocated, we were like one of the principal advocates for Chase's position. Prior to that, there wasn't anybody in Chase's position.
Right.
There was a maintenance manager that was taking on those duties just as he could. We did some recycling programs. We did a number of one-off type of things. I guess I understand the angst and the existential questions around this committee. And I guess I guess one thing is, I mean, if we're struggling for why are we here, then maybe that's reason enough that we shouldn't be here. But I really liked some of the suggestions that were made when we went through that big matrix. I don't know how many years ago it was now, but I think Gwen Jones came up with one of the ideas of let our committee just be a sort of a sounding board to bring in members of the community, different groups that have interesting ideas involving energy efficiency and climate change. I really like that approach where we're just kind of a sounding board, and we could, everything's virtual, so it'd be taped and available for other people to look at later and see if it's something that resonates.
Yeah, I completely agree with the things that Brian was talking about. Another thing that we've done historically too is watch the legislative session and see what bills are coming through, and then advise the Conservation Committee on how to advise the City Council and the City Council's lobbyists on where to position themselves on supporting or not supporting different legislative issues. So I think that's an important function of this team as well, because I think the farther we extend out in any city council subcommittee, the more time, and I say that jokingly, but the more time that that committee has to deal with a specific detailed issue, whereas the city council and the conservation committee as well cannot really deal with like last session, it was 3,576, I think, bills that were proposed. So other people in advisory committees could kind of team up to look at those issues and forward that information on. And as Brian was talking about, there's just the sounding board of just ideas to be generated. We're kind of the idea farm for the Conservation Committee as far as energy and climate issues go, plus being that education and outreach arm. And then Brian very rightly brought up that the energy and climate team back when it was the Greenhouse Gas Conservation Committee were the ones that helped advocate and create Chase's position along with Climate Smart Missoula and Amy Sillenberg. And that's, I certainly understand that with this group and how, we've kind of been in flux for a couple of years now in trying to figure out where we stand. And these are all great conversations to have and to figure out. And I know there's concern with any new group with storming about, where power edges are and who reports to whom and what kind of influence does somebody have. I think historically, our team has really reached out to Chase about how we can help him in his position and be not a drain on him, but a support for him. And whereas we, certainly wouldn't expect Chase to report to us with any frequency or have any specific way he has to report to us or time that he reports to us, we do kind of need to know what's going on with specific energy and climate initiatives within the city so that we can help with that support. So maybe it's just a matter of semantics and also assurances with Chase that the semantics are, hey, we certainly don't expect you to report to us. We're not a governing body like that. But also we would like to have some information so that we can help support the activities that you're performing. And if there's anything that he thinks we could do to help in that role. I know when I've talked to him about this personally in the past, he's always said it's kind of difficult for him to give us tasks because he's worried about us as volunteers and intimidating our time and the amount we have to use, but also that because of what I think it was Jeremy or Chris had mentioned that Chase is doing things daily, whereas we're a monthly meeting body, that it's hard for him to catch us up on those things in any meaningful way. So I fully think that this team should stay in existence, but I understand the existential considerations about it. And I think those just help foster why we should be in existence and are good to have every once in a while, thinking about what our purpose and goal is. And we're still trying to figure that out right now. And Brian can probably, we could definitely talk about this more intelligently than I can, but we've definitely been historically a very project-based team where there wasn't any necessarily well-detailed plan about how we were to move forward with everything, but yet we would have different projects that were brought up, and then we'd see those projects through, ask about new projects, work on those, etc. Trying to figure out some sort of a specific pointed future, I think is a great idea for us to even have just in education outreach, being able to give that 1 minute elevators pitch to people. But I appreciate everybody's input, and that's just my 2 cents.
Oh, good stuff. Thanks, you guys. Any other comments? One of the things that to think about is sort of some broader boxes. Cheryl wants us to be Amber, Councilwoman Cheryl wants us to be advisory and to her board and to the city council. And so we can have a box like advise and how that works. And then we can have a box of education and outreach and try to identify things that way. Right. In terms of, what you said, Michael, in terms of doing historic projects, if the times changed enough that there's so many other groups and individuals, now 2 people in the city working on some of these items, is our role more just like you said at the front end to come up with ideas, to make suggestions, and then be that periodic check-in to make sure that we think they're doing the right thing. And then we obviously don't approve anything, but we could recommend approval if it needed to go to the city council or something. But try to think about some of this stuff in terms of not individual efforts, but in terms of boxes and where that might fit. I'm trying to get my head around all the things that are on this piece of paper, all the things that I'm hearing people talk about, and try to put them into some smaller categories so that we can get a little better handle on what those things are that we want to do. I think too that once we come up with some of these ideas, this all has to go then through the process of Parks and Conservation and City Council, and they may come back and say, I don't think any of this stuff, we want you to do this. And so at some point we have to go to them and say, okay, you guys are the ones, you're the elected officials, you're the ones in charge, you get to tell us, because we are a committee of the City Council, which is also a little unusual in some ways. So really they are our bosses, and they'll come back. Now, I think we can have a really good set of ideas and a rationale for all these ideas and sort of get it all primed up so they don't have to come up with ideas themselves. But it'll be interesting to see as we talk to some of the individual council members like Gwen Jones and Brian Von Lossberg, to hear, if they think we're on track or not. It'll be interesting to hear.
Chris?
Scott, go ahead and then I'll follow you.
Okay, just real quick. Your comment about Amber wanting advice from our group for her committee. It would be helpful if we could hear from Amber just a 5 or 10 minute presentation on the kinds of issues she thinks we might engage with.
Good point. I'll put that down, Scott, and we'll ask her about that.
The thing that I was going to say is I definitely feel like there's a purpose for our committee. I would think it would be a big problem or a travesty if this committee were to go away or dissolve. To piggyback on some of the things that have already been said, I wonder if there's a role for this committee in addition to what we've talked about, to, as there are ideas that come forward and as those ideas come from this committee or come from other entities, is there a role for this committee to generate some enthusiasm, generate some excitement for specific ideas that can then be passed on to Parks and Conservation, as well as City Council? Because it does, I feel like a lot of the ideas need a groundswell of support and need some enthusiasm to help push them forward.
That sounds good. I'm putting that one down. Right, yeah. You know, I've got one of these ideas that I really want to get moving, and for whatever reason, it just seems like a really great one. So the city and the county are considering getting the federal building downtown and moving into it. So as they do that, if they agreed to take on that building, a lot of renovation, huge amount of renovation would be needed. And what a great opportunity to create like a keystone project, a real set it apart kind of idea to make that federal building an energy conservation and renewable energy project that people can come and learn about, read about, you know, and see something that is not just, oh yeah, we hit the marks, you know, we put in our LED lights and whatnot, but a real interesting, innovative project that citizens from Missoula and others could learn about energy conservation, get a little motivated about it through an effort with the city and the county moving into the federal building. So that's one of these projects that I'm sort of doing the rah-rah and trying to talk to everybody I can, because I think it's, you know, it's early enough in the process. They're going to have to spend a huge amount of money to fix this up. Everything's got to go. The whole HVAC, the walls, the windows, the ceiling, the roof, everything, the doors. It's going to be a massive project if they choose to do this, and it'll be in the tens of millions. And so what a great time to set up a real innovative project for the city and the county. So that's one of the things so I may not do that. Obviously I can't do that. It's a bunch of, you know, architects, engineers and the likes, but it could be our role to sort of rah-rah that to the city council and others.
I agree with Chris that that's a good idea. And I would add, I don't know if any of you have toured the Arizona State University campus in Tempe, but you go into a building and the building will provide information about immediate energy use, tell you about the various green energy efforts that have gone into that building. There's just a lot of information, and it's Arizona State over time has become perhaps the leader of US universities in terms of their focus on sustainability and energy conservation. So we've always looked for ways to try to engage the community. And I think Chris has an idea that we ought to hang on to.
And so
Chris,
that wouldn't be, you know, our strategic plan, but it would be that notion of what you were talking about, that we are the bringer forward of ideas. We've heard this in several ways: generate ideas, be the cheerleader for ideas, you know, educate our main clients, the Parks and Conservation and City Council on some of these ideas. I mean, I think that is an idea that's, you call it advice, but it's also a bit of rah-rah as well. Right.
Chris, I also think that's an excellent idea. And I think to kind of make that as a cornerstone of somebody who lives in Missoula or somebody who doesn't live in Missoula, if they were able to come and see this building, come and take a tour and see some of the energy conservation initiatives that are in place in that building, once it's complete, I think that could be just a wonderful thing for our community and a wonderful thing for energy conservation and, you know, energy development, if there's solar panels and there's other types of energy development built into that building as well. So I think it's a fabulous idea.
That's good.
And Don Veru, they keep putting the hooks at him and keeping him in as the supervisor over at Development Services in Missoula. And he was always a big proponent of this team and was always fully online with us developing a green building initiative. So while he's in the catbird seat over there, it'd be a good idea, I think, to reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to kind of tell us what would work for them for Development Services for a green building initiative. And then we could kind of draft up something in a skeleton form and then forward that on to the committee, Conservation Committee, and see what they thought about it.
Yeah, and another great example of us not necessarily being the people that write the document, who, you know, where I think we're getting too far into the weeds, you know, for somebody like Chase or maybe even the city council, but where we, yeah, just like you say, Mike, use the knowledge that we have because we're the brain trust. That's a word that actually Amber used. We're the brain trust. And, you know, make some calls, have some meetings, do some white papers, some, you know, and then start moving things forward in terms of education and outreach with city councilmen and others, people within the city. You know, we just got done, for example, with the budget process. So when all these city managers bring budget forward, you know, have they considered, you know, energy efficiency in all their decisions? And they're required to, but they've got a million other things, primarily whatever their main job is. You know, it's not the police force's job to conserve energy, but it kind of is. So how do you educate, you know, our city department managers to think about that when they're drafting the budget? And I'm not saying they don't, I'm sure they do, but you know, trying to make it a little bit more robust, a little more part of their thoughtful process as they come up with the budget on an annual basis. So that's, again, that little education and outreach. It's not to the community necessarily, but we work, you know, again, for the city council needs to hear from its managers. And so there's an interface where we can go in and suggest, you know, not maybe individual projects. I know everybody here has heard about the solar panel prospects at the wastewater treatment plant. And when we took the tour out there, it was another discussion, and it's still alive and it's still kind of moving forward, but there's a lot of other things, you know. And so there's an idea that maybe Jeremy Keene and the folks over there would like to move forward, would like to make a priority, but they've got 100 other priorities. But by us bringing it forward to the city council, maybe that message comes back and it ends up becoming a budget item sooner than later, you know. So again, trying to think about us as not doing it, but promoting it, thinking about it, coming up with the ideas, and trying to reach out to the right people and move that forward is an idea. I'm like everybody here trying to figure this out, and I'm a guy who likes to do projects. So my first thought is, let's just jump in and help folks do it. And I heard that was not the role, because again, we're volunteers. We can't be there every day. It's not our job to do these projects, but the brain trust, the generator of ideas, and it's not enough to generate them. You have to push them forward as well. Even if in the end we don't develop them, we need to try to help people become aware of them and get them moving. So just some thoughts that way. A little nebulous in the sense, like, okay, anyone got an idea today? I don't know. How about everybody drive electric cars? Okay, that's a great idea. And then what do you do with it, right? So you have to be practical. You have to be focused, and it has to be something that we can move forward, because we obviously can't ask for, you know, carbon neutrality by 2025. There's something to work on. You know, there's notion of carbon neutrality by 2025. Should we say it's time to look at the conservation and climate action plan and come up with something that's actually doable, reasonable, or, you know, at least have that discussion. That the first time I heard that 2025, I you know, you can't help but chuckle. It's like, who came up with this? And I'm sure people in this meeting were involved with that. But maybe I'll ask Brian, you know, Brian, when they came up with that, was there really a thought that that could happen? I digress, I understand.
I wasn't involved with that. And our group wasn't involved with that. That came out of a different direction. Yeah, I don't know what all went into it.
But being involved with revising plans or updating plans, maybe we won't do it, but we can push for it. The other one that is really old now is the one Robin Saha and his team did, which was the whole. It was an energy usage emissions package, you know, where he put together all the numbers for how much carbon the city's using, and they've got a model now that kind of keeps track of that. So maybe it doesn't need to be, but it would be interesting to see, you know, what our emissions are. I think coming forward, Chase is going to be coming out by the end of the year with his report on the emissions that the city is generating. And so we've already talked to him about being one of the things that we review before it goes to the city council. So there's a review option and also a promotion to make sure that those numbers are available. Right now, that model is not something we can access. No one in the city can access. And so most people don't really know since that original report what our emissions are, other than these very brief generic reports that come out every couple, 2-3 years through Chase's office. So that's part of that review part, you know. So we've got advise, ideas, but review means that when Chase comes out with the plan for the implementation of the MOU between Northwest Energy, the county, and the city, that action plan will be coming out anytime now in September. The expectation is that once that's developed, it'll come to us before it goes to the city council. And we make that clear to Chase. At one point, I'm like, Chase, can't we be involved? Can't we be on the team? And he's like, no, you can't be on the team. And so, but where the middle ground might be on that one is, okay, that's fine. But we will see this, we will review this before it goes to the city council, because it's critical that us as the brain trust, energy conservation, renewable energy, does that. And so that's one of those buckets, is that review process as well. And that's a critical piece I think our team needs to play. If anybody wants to comment on that. So if anybody says that's not a good idea, you can talk now. If it's a good idea, you don't have to say anything, and it'll be on the list.
It sounds good, Chris.
All righty. Let's hear. What time is it? It's 11:06. We have until 11:30. You know, unless anybody has any comments, I think we want to spend some time on this youth team member. I've taken everybody's ideas down. If anybody has any other ideas, please email them to me. I sent everyone this document that has the ideas so far that we put together in just a generic form. So I'll append it with any additional ones. And then I think from my standpoint, what I want to do is start putting them in boxes. And then unless anybody has any opposition, Jeremy and I will start contacting key stakeholders and meeting with them in the coming weeks and months to get additional input on what our team can best do to serve the city and reduce greenhouse gases.
I appreciate it. Oh, I was just going to say, I appreciate that you and Jeremy are willing to do that, Chris. I'm all for it. Thank you very much.
And Chris and Jeremy, I second that. I appreciate your willingness, and please reach back to us also if there's a.
I think we
Oh, no,
lost you.
Oh,
Yeah, we lost you there for a second, Josh. That's all.
am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, I really, I'm not, I appreciate the feedback we're getting from Chase and Amber. There's, in me processing through this in my mind, I see some tension between what we're getting from both ways from those two individuals, from what city council would like to see out of us, and then respecting, I know how busy Chase is, not to have to report to one more additional person. I'm in the military. I've had the experience of having too many people to report to in the chain of command. So I get that, but I think everyone has a great attitude here today as far as how to tackle that, because there is a lot of tension and it's tough. And that's why I just wanted to chime in, and I like your idea, Chris and Jeremy, until they tell us not to do it, I guess. But again, because that's what I'm seeing is do more, yet if you go down a certain road, it seems like we're being told not to do that. So that's my quick 2 cents to throw in at the end of this big conversation. Thanks.
It's a great observation, Josh. Totally agree. I think you nailed it there pretty good. Scott?
Chris, can I comment on the students?
Okay, so we're gonna close out this item as a non-action item. Next item up on the agenda is the youth team members and next steps. So we've obviously have a bunch of steps to take with respect to this. We saw one of those today with Michael. Thank you, sending along a flyer that we'll use to help start recruiting team members. I also sent out kind of a work plan. It wasn't so much a work plan as a series of questions and some ideas, but we will need to take that document and refine it down and get it to, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And so that's that youth team member startup work plan. So hopefully today, since this is an action item, we can actually take a few actions or make some decisions on next steps. So we'll look at the recruitment process probably is the first place to start. But Scott, you had a comment? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a general comment. I mean, we all think this is a good idea. For those of us who've worked with students over the course of years, students come forward with great ideas and they're eager to see somebody do something. So we need to also think about ways in which to engage the students, because we'll end up with some who are like a Greta and want to know why we're not doing anything. And they're going to ask us, what is this committee for? And what's our role here? Because we think you should do X, Y, and Z. So they're going to have a lot of ideas. And I don't want to disappoint them in terms of saying, no, well, that's Chase's job. That's Climate Smart Missoula's job. We just need to make sure that we embrace their ideas and help them act on them.
Scott, you're hitting exactly on the being fulfilled. You know, and Chase spoke directly to this. He doesn't want people on this committee feeling unfulfilled. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Sounds good. All righty. That's true. So that's why we're moving forward with the strategic planning process. So we can outline what needs to be done and have agreement broadly within the decision makers as to that's what they need us to do. Okay, first up on the youth team members is the digital ad flyer that Michael has developed. Thank you so much, Michael. I guess, Michael, you taking comments on that?
Oh, absolutely. That's just a first edit attempt. Anybody feel free to, strike an ad as they feel necessary. I'm happy to change to whatever anybody feels is going to be effective. Apologize about any spelling errors. I'll correct those.
I think one thing that we need to talk about is when we meet, just from a logistical perspective. I know that the city council chambers are no longer available most Thursdays or all Thursdays. And I'm also aware that most all of the high schools, students in the beginning letters of the alphabet A through K have school on generally Tuesday and Wednesday from 10 a.m. until 3:30. And then students in the second half of the alphabet, M through Z, have school on Thursday and Friday, 10 a.m. to 3:30. And the times when they're not in school. So if you're a remote student on those days, then you're, watching, participating in class, but doing it remotely. So I guess I just wonder about the time that we meet. Does it make sense to try and meet earlier in the day or later in the day to try and accommodate youth team members? Or do we need to just set a meeting time based upon the 7 of us and when we are available to meet?
Yeah, I think those are great comments, Jeremy. Just real quick before Chris, I'm guessing you're going to jump in on this one. The reason that says second Thursday of each month up at the top is because I started making this a long time ago when we were actually still meeting. So just hadn't corrected that, but that's a huge thing, is figuring out when our meeting times are. My opinion is that we don't try and schedule our meetings around when students might be available for several reasons. The most important of which is that the difference in meeting times and days for in-class session and online learning is very different between MCPS schools, Valley Christian, Loyola, St. Joe's, and then homeschool students. So probably trying to find a time when you could accommodate everyone in there is going to be an impossible task. So I would vote for us just trying to figure out what works for us. And then the advantage for students too, just like with our alternate members, is that, as Marty pointed out, our meetings are online. So they could always review those meetings if they weren't able to attend the actual live session.
Yeah, sounds good. I guess I would ask, is, starting at 3 to 5, if that, does that work for people? Is that a little too late in the day? Is that when you're getting ready for something else, you're picking up your own kids from school? That's not a good time. So just in general, I know we had noon to 2. That seemed to work for most folks. So maybe a little poll is, if the end of the day doesn't work for you, speak now.
Yeah.
Chris,
go ahead, Michael.
No, I'm sorry, Jeremy. All I was going to say is, with the health department as part of the incident command structure for COVID, the end of the day is always out for me. We have a COOP meeting at the end of every day.
Right, and that's probably through, the rest of the school year anyways. So anybody else, end of the day?
Chris, for me, it kind of depends on the day. There's some days where I'm, picking up my son from things or taking my daughter to ice skating, that kind of thing. But it's different on a Tuesday compared to a Wednesday. And so I guess we'd have to, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to do a Google survey or,
Yeah,
specific kind of times. But I like the idea of kind of trying to figure out, are mornings better, afternoons, because there's so many different options.
all right, well, I'll do that. I'll send that out. And then this is a question more for Marty. Obviously one of the things during all this virtual meeting, which will probably continue, as you said, will continue, trying to find a time that we can schedule out, many months. We know it's going to be every month at this time. And I know it's been a little bit hectic on your end trying to get all this together, but is there a sense, Marty, that we can find a time that we can use consistently going forward?
I hope so. Let me tell you a couple of things that we're doing here. So the municipal court uses the council chambers all day for socially distant trials, and they will be doing that through the end of this year. Because we're essentially needing to host, the way we're configured right now, this room, Thursdays have been off the table for all boards and commissions. And so everybody is scrambling for meeting dates, places, and times because they all have to be hosted from here. So we have a project in the works to purchase a second encoder, which will enable us to simultaneously broadcast meetings on eScribe that are being held at the same time. Likewise, we have hired a contractor to come in and do some wiring here at 140 West Pine so that we can host meetings from council chambers, the Hal Fraser conference room, the city council office, Jack Reedy conference room, as well as city council chambers. We do not have an ETA from our contractor about when they're going to install that stuff. But once we get it, there's going to be a mad scramble from all these boards that have been trying to meet on Thursdays to try to reschedule. So I think that once that project's up, scheduling a regular meeting date and time will be more possible than it has been here to date, and we're pretty glad about that. I am hoping that'll be in place in mid-October. So it'll be good to know. I think a doodle poll or something like that to understand generally your membership's availability for meetings will be helpful to us to figure out when we can schedule one of our meeting rooms to host your meetings virtually. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Marty. I'm glad you guys are working on it. You guys have been up against the wall with this, with all our changes and meetings and dealing with the city council and all that. And I know it has not been easy, and we appreciate you working this in when you can, and we'll certainly be as flexible or do what we need to do to make sure we're all successful. So I'll do a doodle poll about meeting times, and once we get that, I'll get it to you, and then you can have it once your new wiring and new computers come in, and your staff is, figures out their availability as well. So that's great. Appreciate that feedback.
Yes. Our new admin starts on Monday next week, a week from today. So we're super excited. That person will be doing your minutes and agendas just as soon as we can train her to do that. So, and she'll also be overseeing board recruitments as we can train her to do that. So hopefully we'll have your committee on a more even keel in terms of your admin support. And so we'll do the rest of this stuff in a little bit once I hear from you about your availability.
Great. Yesterday I went online and I looked at all the things the city clerk's office does, and as well as legislative affairs, apparently thrown in for good measure. It's really a big list of things. I wish you all the luck because man, there's a lot on that list. Anyways, Jeremy, did you have something?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. So meeting times was one, the flyer is one. Since we're running a little low on time, really one of the big questions we need to answer today is, do we try to execute an implementation of this plan for the remainder of this school year? And I've heard from some people, yes. I haven't heard from anybody, no, but it's obviously a little challenging. We don't want to, as Michael says, we don't want to make a big deal about this with the schools and everything they've got going on. I just heard the other day that Sentinel now has 3 cases of COVID-19. So they've got all that to deal with. But really what we're trying to figure out is, do we do an abbreviated process this year, or do we wait till next spring and execute? And then some of the related questions that came with that is, if we do and they serve for whatever 8 months, these students, do we give them a chance to come back again next time for a full year if they want, if they haven't obviously graduated and moved on or whatever. So I think that I could go either way. I'm happy to jump into it. but it's going to take some fudging and running around to make it work this year. But I think we can. We obviously, from this work plan standpoint, there's a number of things we need to do, an application, some figure out how we're going to train them, how we're going to get them on board, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to open up the floor now to comments on whether we wish to do an abbreviated session, for lack of a better word, for their youth team members.
Yes.
Scott says yes. All right.
I'm just concerned if Marty, if her new administrative assistant comes on, are they able to handle application process at this point for a youth team member? And do we need to amend the application for the youth team members?
I don't understand. So we have a system in place. Our plan is to train our admin on the board recruitment system. That applies. We use the same application form for all boards. So for us, it's most efficient if we can step into that system that you use to appoint you, rather than creating a separate system for the youth members of your panel. Is that they would apply through our website the same way you did, using an application form. I'm not up to speed on how they get appointed, but I assume it would be through the Parks and Conservation team by the city council. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. It's more challenging to set up a separate system that's unique to your committee.
Yeah, so two things. It's great that we have an existing system we don't have to recreate. And one of the questions that's not on my list, but I guess we need to ask is it this team that decides on the youth team members, or is it Parks and Conservation? So I'm just going to add that to my list here. So who decides? So there's that. All right, Michael, what else did you have with that?
Oh, no, that was it. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to end up doing something that was going to put Marty in a bind, but it sounds like they already have it ready to go. So that's fine with me. I have no desire to change a system that works.
Great. Anybody else? I think I heard from you, Jeremy, that you were up for trying to do it this year.
Yes, I agree.
And no, we may be calling on you to provide anyone here on the team to provide some assistance. There's going to be some lifting in the coming weeks if we move forward on this.
Sure, absolutely.
Gwen, we haven't heard much from you today. You have any comments on this?
I think it's good. I think everything that we're talking about is fine. I think it's just a matter of getting started, and we'll probably end up ironing out some of the blips as we go, but I think it's a good start, and I think it's great to get the youth involved. So I'm excited about it. So thank you for the work on it.
All right, thanks, Gwen. Josh, what are you thinking?
I've been bouncing back and forth. I think if there's ever a justification to kick the can down the road of the year, it's now in these circumstances, hoping we'll be back to normal. With that said, with the hearing the rest of the team members excited about staying on board, I've been a big advocate.
So we lost Josh there for the moment. So maybe not kick it down the can down the road if we have enough advocates to move forward. So when Josh comes back, we'll finish that question. Brian, any comments?
No, I think you're doing a good job, and eager to see where you steer this group.
All right. So Josh, sorry, you broke up. You said you thought about kicking it down the can, but then kicking the can down the road, but then you said with enough enthusiasm, and then you broke up.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I say let's go forward with it. Just hearing everybody else wanting to continue with it. And if the youth don't get the experience we want them to, we have the conversation you mentioned, Chris, about bringing them back on board another year.
All right, great. So the next one up, so right now the team is mostly Michael and myself. Does anybody else wish to volunteer for the working group to start up the youth team member program?
Chris,
Otherwise,
if I
you
can
give-
help,
Yeah, go ahead,
if I can
Scott.
help, if I can help with the conversation with the students and with your and Jeremy's assistance about here's what we can do. Let us hear your ideas and interact with the students one-on-one, via Zoom to find out a little bit more about what they hope to accomplish. If I can help in any way, I will.
Right, yeah. Lifetime working in universities. I'm sure you have a handle on how to talk to students, I'm sure. All right, thanks about that.
Sometimes.
Generations change.
Yes, they do.
All right. So let's see here. I think we're going to want to have a motion because this is an action related to our board. I'm going to move that we begin the youth team member program this month, September, for this school year, the 2021 school year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
unanimous, aye. So we'll begin the program. So Michael and I and Scott will begin discussions as a working group. And if anybody else wants to join in, you just let us know. And we'll keep you apprised as to how it's going.
Thank you.
Mhm. So it's 11:29. We have 1 minute to go. Are there any last comments for the good of the order?
I have one question I want to ask. How are we going to advertise those positions for the youth? Is that going to be maybe a more specific advertisement process? Because we need to probably kind of, I'm thinking, get into maybe the schools. I'm just wondering, I know there's a typical process that's done just through the city, but I'm wondering if there's something in addition that we might want to consider as well.
Yeah, no problem, Glenn. Yeah, thanks for that, Gwen. I had put out a list of places that I thought we could advertise through before, including, as you just said, apart from what the city clerk's office will do for advertising, but going to the neighborhood committees and then going through the school contacts and as well as with OPI for getting to the homeschool students and then the different parochial and private schools as well. And then the MCAT and community boards on the local TV stations and radio stations.
Sounds good. All right. So with that,
Thank you, Mike.
it's 11:30 and we're going to adjourn our meeting. We'll meet again in approximately 1 month, but there'll be more communication between now and then. And thanks everybody for your help.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris and Jeremy. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
Bye.